Hello friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works workshop, and I believe we've got part one ready for the, let's see, should we call this? This would be the Mississippi Missing Mandolin top. There's a lot of M's in that. You can't say that three times real fast. But it came from, this instrument came from Mississippi, and I just started working on the top this afternoon. And you can see we got pretty far along from a rough board, and I'll take you on the trip to show you how we got to this point. Hope you enjoy it. Finally getting started here on this Kentucky mandolin that needs a top. Now you can see I have a top on here. Well, where did that come from? Well, actually, I replaced a top on a Kentucky mandolin many years ago, and I thought, well, I'll just lay it on here and see how it fits it, just to you know, give me an idea of a couple of things. Number one, is the shape about the same? I'm just curious if they had changed it. Looks like it's pretty close to the same on the body. Up and around in the scroll it doesn't fit. But the main reason I put this on here was to give me an idea of the arch that this mandolin is going to need. I can look down the neck, sight right down the frets, and look at this and see that this is really almost exactly level with this. So that tells me that I'll probably need to make a top that's just a little bit higher than this top is. You know, maybe a 1/8 of an inch to give me a little bit of room there so that we can adjust this bridge better. Otherwise the bridge will be standing up really tall, and I don't want a really extra tall bridge. In other words, I don't want to have it extended all the way to the top of the screw. That would not be good. So anyway, those are just some ideas here that I'm looking at and trying to determine just how tall does this, how thick this top needs to be. Just done some rough measuring, and that's pretty hard. It is actually harder than you would expect to decide how thick this top has to be. You know, this is crazy thick. It's way beyond what we need. This is a little low, as we've already said. I looked at my specs, and my specs go just about this height or a hair higher. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave this, I'm going to go and leave this somewhere around 5/8 of an inch thick. I'm going to plane this down to about 5/8 of an inch. And that should give me a good starting point to where we need to be. That's 625 thousandths, so we're going to start by doing that. Well, the dust just proved to be too much. I had to get some dust collection, so what I did was I just made me a little disc up here that fits snug down in the tube, and drilled a hole in it that fits my vacuum cleaner, and so that's what we're going to go with for right now. The shop vac is just barely powerful enough to suck all the dust out of there, so it does seem to work, we've got a ways to go. I'll turn it on, show you how it's working here, but we'll probably bring you back when we're really close. Okay, I stopped right there. I'm at 630 thousandths, which is 5 thousandths over my goal. And that's fine. That'll be perfect. We're going to more or less trace the top pattern on here now, and then cut that out on the bandsaw, and then we'll get started carving. Now that we have the top to the proper thickness that we want to start with, then we next need to transfer the shape of this body to the top. To do that, I just made myself a cardboard piece here that will fit around the neck and slide on top. And I can turn it over right here on the workbench. And then just going to use a pencil and hold it real still. And we'll just trace around the body. Really taking time to make sure I get a good dark outline. And as you can see, we've got a real good outline there, or at least I believe you can. And that'll give me a good basis to start with. Basically, we'll leave most of the pencil mark and just cut the wood out to that shape, or well, first we'll cut the pattern out to that shape, but we'll leave pretty much all the pencil mark, and then we'll double check the fit on the top, and then if it's a good fit, then we'll trace it onto the wood. I have cut the cardboard pattern out on the bandsaw, and you know, that does a good job. It keeps the edges good and straight and everything. You don't crimp them down like you would if you were trying to use shears or scissors or something. I'm fairly satisfied with that. That gives me a little bit of play. It's a little large, but that's what you want. It's always easy to go small. Going bigger is a whole lot more trouble. I also wrote the word top on here because it's very easy to get confused and turn the pattern over the wrong way. You know, basically the pencil mark I drew was on the underside, so you could easily think that's the top, and it's not. This is the top, so I want that side up when I draw the pattern, obviously. And the next thing I need to do is decide where the center line is, because you know this top is joined, and we want that joint to be right down the center line. So I have to determine where that center line is on this instrument. Okay, I've drawn a center line down the center of this board, light pencil mark. I've got the top up, and I've got the center line centered on the pattern. And now we can take a pencil and trace around the pattern right on the wood. Up in this general area, you can see how I've got it a line drawn which matches my pattern for sliding it under that neck. But for right now, I'm going to leave this plenty big, so I'm bringing the curl over to here and going to leave all that stock on there, and maybe even make it a hair thicker up in here, just so I don't, you know, wish I had more to work with later. So we'll rough that out now on the bandsaw. We're at the bandsaw, getting ready to make the initial cuts. Well, that appears to be a pretty good rough out, and the tapered is still there down to the sides. What I'm gonna do next is work on thinning out the whole edge here. Maybe use the drill press and a cutter and slide it under that cutter, and then, you know, get this whole outer edge to a uniform thickness, something that I can carve down to, and everything would be uniform. I'm gonna get all kinds of negative comments from the safety Nazis out there, but I've been doing this for 20 plus years, I'm sure, and have never had a problem. I've got the blade guard off of my joiner, which is
a definite no-no normally. I just took it off. I normally keep it on there. I just took it off for this one operation, and I will be putting it right back on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and just taper the back of this down, similar to the way these sides are tapered. That'll get rid of a lot of extra wood very quickly. I'm holding on to it a long way from the blade. My hands are going to be nowhere near the blade, but it is a dangerous operation, and I don't recommend anybody try this at home. Okay, that's all there is to it. Like I said, I don't feel like it's a very dangerous move because I'm very aware of what's going on. I keep my eyes glued to it, and my hands are quite a long ways away from it, and I'm just rotating it through the blades. So it does a good job. It gets rid of a lot of extra material. Now I'll put the blade guard back on the machine. Okay, I have a 3/8 inch milling cutter in here. I have the drill press turned up as fast as it'll go. And what I'm going to do is just go around and score the outside edges. Now this is actually fairly dangerous. This can grab this thing and jerk it in a whole bunch of different directions. So you got to be very careful. You also have to be careful about the direction you're cutting, because if you're cutting the wrong way, you can break these tips off. And not that that's a huge big problem, because you can always glue them back on, but you gotta be careful. And so you don't want to create any extra problems. And you got to be careful that it don't grab it and suck the whole thing inside here either. So what I'm really trying to do is get a uniform thickness all the way around here, something that'll give me a good eye edge to carve down to. Here we go. I'm going to have to shim up the table. The drill press keeps moving around, so I'm going to have to shim the feet so that this thing doesn't flop around. It's hard enough to do this with a stable drill press, so we'll have to fix that and get back to it here. As it stands right here, I'm still quite thick. I'm going to put some sort of a gauge block in here and test the thickness, and then I'm going to bring this down to approximately 1/4 of an inch. Just, maybe even a little heavy of that, maybe about 260, something like that. That'll just give me a good reference for carving everything too. Well, as I said, that's one of the more dangerous operations. It really is. You have to be very careful, very mindful of what's going on. And anyway, that gives me a good edge all the way, a good uniform edge all the way around. And now we can start the hand carving. Just about ready to start the hand planing, the hand shaping, hand carving on this top. But I always like to hone my blades before I start. Literally, if it's not sharp enough to shave hair fairly easily, then it's probably not sharp enough to carve the top well. So I'm going to give it a shot here. It's got a curved bottom, remember, kind of a rounded, curved bottom, rounded edge and curved bottom. So it's a little tricky to sharpen, but you definitely want to get it sharp all the way around that edge. After they've been sharpened a number of times, the best thing to do is to re-hollow grind it on a grinder. And I grew up with my dad having a landscaping business, so I learned how to hollow grind lawnmower blades and do it by hand. So that was a good skill to learn, because I can hollow grind the blades on these things here and make them pretty darn sharp just right on the grinder, and then just hone them a little bit here and we're ready to go. So I've got the beveled part of the blade is down, the bevel and rounded part, and then I'm rocking it on that leading edge in a kind of a circular motion to just hone that front edge. It's shaven, but not as good as it usually does. It's shaven, but I usually get it better than that. So I'm going to work on it a little bit more, and I'll bring you back when we get her there. Okay, now it's shaven like it should. I don't know if you'll be able to see that up on this close-up camera, but it's just shaving it right off there. Now, no pressure at all. It just takes it right off. When you get it that sharp, you're ready to go. Alright, I'm ready you can see I've started using it just a little bit off camera here, but I wanted to get the depth set correctly. It's also very important to have just the right amount of blade sticking out of your plane. Too much and it digs in way too much, not enough, and your shavings are so thin you're not taking off anything. So there's a happy medium for sure. The only way I can tell you about that is you just have to trial and error and do this for 30 years and you'll figure it out. But anyway, I might actually have it set a hair deep at the moment because it's a little harder to push. Of course, I'm using the middle size plane. I normally carve all this with the little plane. This middle size one will take it off much faster, and it doesn't take a crazy amount of time to do this. It's more time than most people want to spend. It'll probably take me 2 or 3 hours to get it roughly in the dome shape that I'm looking for, and that'll just be rough.
I'm going to have to pause here and get this scroll worked out so I can carve the rest of this, because this is just hard to do this up here without having that scroll all cut out. Once again, I went back to the cardboard pattern and I got this traced through here with a ice pick, or at least this probe, and I went in here and I just scratched the cardboard, and then I penciled that mark, covered those scratches with pencil, then I sawed that back out. Now I'm ready to transfer that to the top of the mandolin here and get this cut out. So I'm just centering the pattern over the top of the top. We'll cut all that out and then we'll be able to work on the scroll area. I have the scroll cut out. I went back to the bandsaw. Actually, I went back to a smaller bandsaw with a smaller blade. And now you can see I've got this roughed out, and you know, it is what it is. It just needs to be carved down. And what I've sharpened this chisel. This is a gouge type chisel, and I'm just going to I'm just using a rubber mallet. It's just handy. I have a large wooden mallet for this, but I don't know where it is in my move. I don't know. I couldn't find it. So anyway, we'll just chisel out the bulk of this in this general area. You have to be a little bit careful when you come up here because you could hit this other thing. So I'm pulling back with the chisel actually to keep it from going there. I don't want it to hit that. Okay, now that I've got the big meat of this out of here, what I will, and you can probably start to see how it's tapered down in here now. Now I'm going to just take a pencil. I'm going to sharpen this pencil up a little bit, and I'm going to, this is where the artist part of this comes in, and I'm going to draw the detail in here and chisel away what I don't need. So we'll just draw by eye what I want for detail here. Okay, that's what it's going to look like roughly. This will be the high part of the ridge coming around. This will get scalloped out. I'll have to cut this right here so it makes a sharp edge. Take the X-Acto knife and I'll cut that design right now. Okay, so we got that cut out a little bit. Now that I have that cut out a little bit, I can chisel it lightly away, and you can see how it'll chisel up to that cut. Need to cut it a little deeper. It's hard to go deep enough on something like that. You just have to work at it. Well, that gives you a rough idea of what it's going to look like. And Then we go back to the plane and start to clean it up. Well, I think that's going to about do me for this afternoon. My fingers, if you can see the side of my finger there, how it's just wears into it. It does a number on your fingers. You're pushing really hard on that plane, much harder than it looks, and it gets hot. The plane actually gets hot enough that it's hard to hold it. I mean, it's that hot, and of course that just wears that much more on your fingers when it's hot like that. But I think I'm going to call that good for this afternoon, and we'll make this part one of the video on replacing this top. Hope you've enjoyed what you've seen up to this point. It's going to get better as we go.